In the heart of Asia, where the wind speaks in tongues and the sand remembers everything, lies a desert vast and silent, the Gobi, barren, empty, timeless, or so we've been told. But what if this emptiness is a lie? What if beneath these dunes, buried beneath layers of time and secrecy, are the broken bones of a forgotten city, not made of stone, but of glass? Glass, twisted, melted, scorched into the ground, as if by fire from the stars. In the midst of this silence, strange rumors have begun to rise. Whispers of ancient ruins, blackened by heat no natural flame could produce. Footprints of civilization or annihilation. Could it be that before our history even began, there was a time when humankind, or something else, wielded the power of the sun itself? Tonight, we journey into the unknown, into shifting sands and buried secrets. Join us as we seek the truth behind the glass city of the Gobi Desert and ask the question that history dares not speak aloud. Was there an ancient nuclear war? The Gobi is not an easy land. It does not yield its secrets freely. Winds howl like voices from another age. Temperatures plunge by night and sear by day. For centuries, it repelled wanderers, save the few brave or foolish enough to cross it. But in the early decades of the 20th century, as borders shifted and the tools of exploration grew sharper, scientists and adventurers began to probe its mysteries. In the 1930s, a handful of Soviet geologists on an obscure mapping mission stumbled upon something peculiar in the southern reaches of the desert, a patch of earth that glittered unnaturally in the harsh Mongolian sun. At first, they mistook it for quartz or some rare mineral deposit. But as they dug, they realized something stranger. The sand was fused, melted, not from surface fires, but from unimaginable heat. Entire stretches of terrain had been turned to glass, thick, translucent slabs with bubble scars, as if boiled in an instant. Stranger still, the glass wasn't random. It formed along lines, shapes, geometric patterns. Could it be a coincidence? Or was it a ruin, one that had been melted into silence? Reports were scribbled, photographs taken, then locked away in drawers of military offices far from the desert's edge. The region was marked unremarkable on official maps. The expedition was quietly forgotten, but the glass remained. If the land could speak, what stories would it tell? Across the vast steppes of Mongolia and northern China, tales drift between generations, carried not in books, but in breath. Stories of a lost city swallowed by flame, of a sky that burned for 3 days and nights, of iron dragons that roared above the mountains. The locals never called it a myth. They called it a memory. In the Shanhai Jing, the ancient Chinese classic of mountains and seas, there are veiled references to cities in the west, where the ground had been blackened and made hard like crystal, where beings from the sky once descended in chariots of light. Some scholars dismiss this as poetic metaphor. Others, quiet, careful, began to wonder. In Tibetan chronicles, there are references to Agni people, fire-bringers, who came from the heavens and taught wisdom and war. When they left, fire fell, mountains wept, a city was lost to glass. Were these allegories, or garbled echoes of real catastrophe? Across Central Asia, nomadic clans whisper of the burning plain, a forbidden stretch of desert where birds will not fly and compasses twist like frightened animals. They speak of ghost cities, where glass grows in the ground and the air smells of lightning. And within these myths, a pattern emerges. A city, a fire, a silence that followed. But who were the builders? What flame did they call down upon themselves? And is it possible that myth is not fiction, but fractured memory, smudged by time? In the world of geology, few processes are more violent than the creation of glass. Sand does not melt easily. It demands a searing heat above 1,600 degrees Celsius to break its crystalline bonds. Nature only achieves this through extremes: volcanic eruptions, lightning strikes, meteor impacts, or something else entirely. The phenomenon known as vitrification, the transformation of Earth into glass, leaves behind a specific signature: bubbles trapped within the matrix, flow patterns, molecular scars, and in the Gobi, those signs are everywhere. Small pockets of fused desert, entire fields where the ground forms warped glass sheets, peppered with impact-like craters, fractures that radiate outwards like shock waves. To geologists, it made no sense. There are no volcanoes here, no meteorites large enough to explain the scale, no lightning powerful enough to create such consistency over kilometers of terrain. One scientist, anonymous in his 1984 field notes, wrote, "This is not the product of a single event. This looks like fallout." That term would not appear again in official publications, but it raised a haunting question. Could such vitrification have been the result of technology, not nature? For comparison, consider trinitite, the strange green glass found at the site of the first atomic bomb test in New Mexico, 1945. Sand fused in an instant by a fireball. Now place a sample of Gobi glass beside it. The resemblance is uncanny. Both share a greenish tint. Both contain high levels of le chatelierite, a form of quartz glass that forms under instantaneous extreme temperatures. But the Gobi glass is far older, perhaps thousands of years older. So what caused it? There is no known weapon in ancient history. No furnace, no ritual fire, no natural disaster that could produce what the Gobi reveals. Unless we are missing a chapter of our own story. One buried, one burned, one erased. Silence has a sound, and in the Gobi, it is deafening. Modern expeditions, rare and often unpublicized, have returned with stories stranger than fiction. Instruments fail, compasses spin, GPS signals vanish, drones drop from the sky without warning, cameras record static, and some researchers speak of a sensation, not fear, but pressure, as though the air itself disapproves of their presence. Locals have long avoided a stretch of desert west of the Helen Mountains, a place they call simply the Forbidden Hollow. There, travelers report strange echoes at night, as if footsteps follow their own. Some hear metallic ringing beneath their tents. Others find glass fragments in geometric shapes, some etched with unknown markings. But perhaps most unsettling is this. Aerial imagery from satellites has repeatedly shown distortions in this region. Linear ridges, concentric arcs, massive depressions too symmetrical to be natural, too erased to be explained. In 2003, a high-resolution scan by a private European satellite caught something unusual. A grid-like structure buried beneath the sands, over 2 kilometers wide, square foundations, hallways, towers. Within a week, the imagery was gone from public databases. Attempts to access updated satellite views show nothing but blurring. The terrain is marked anomalous zone. What lies there is no longer just history. It is actively hidden. Even in government archives, odd patterns emerge. Multiple geological surveys from the 1960s and 70s end abruptly, with entire pages blacked out or missing. Internal memos in declassified files speak of unusual electromagnetic feedback and potential hazard zones. A 1971 report from a Chinese military unit refers cryptically to Area J-14. Do not enter without clearance. Radiation levels inconsistent. Presence of fused ground consistent with test range. No record of detonation. But no tests were recorded in that region. Not by China, not by the Soviets, not by anyone. And still, the glass remains, unaging, unbroken, unexplained. There are stories that history fears to tell, not because they are impossible, but because they are too possible. The idea of an ancient nuclear war sounds like madness, anachronistic, a fantasy of science fiction. And yet, the patterns persist. The evidence returns, fractured, uninvited, in sands and scriptures, in myths and in molecules. Cut to black and white footage of Mohenjo-Daro excavation. In India, the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro yielded something disturbing. Skeletons lying hand in hand, bodies untouched by weapons, as though a sudden invisible force had struck them dead in an instant. Some showed radiation levels above normal background. Stone surfaces bore scorch marks. The streets turned to glass. In the Middle East, we find vitrified fortresses in Syria, southern Turkey, and northern Iraq. Walls melted from the outside. No torch, no siege engine, no primitive fire could achieve such destruction. And now, the Gobi joins them. Fused terrain, structured melts, geometric alignment of blast scars. It is as if a fingerprint, a common hand, pressed into history again and again, across distant lands and lost centuries. Several rogue theorists, dismissed as fringe, even ridiculed, began to speak boldly. There was a war, they said, long ago, before language, between civilizations now turned to dust, perhaps even between species. Some went further still, suggesting the Gobi was not always a desert, but the scorched skeleton of a forgotten empire, a technologically advanced culture, a kind of Eastern Atlantis, whose end came not by flood, but by fire, perhaps engineered fire. Visuals, overlay of blast zones, satellite photos showing radial lines buried beneath sand. High-altitude imagery has revealed concentric arcs, grid patterns, and circular depressions resembling modern blast zones. Some look like buried cities, others like craters, but none match known meteor strikes, and none lie near volcanic activity. What then are they? Was it a war between kings? Or something stranger? Cut to slow zoom on ancient carvings, beings with large eyes, holding fire, stepping from the sky. Ancient alien theorists, controversial but persistent, point to familiar patterns. The Vimana wars of the Mahabharata, the fire chariots of Babylon, the sky teachers of the Shanhai Jing, the Anunnaki, the star beings, the firebringers. In this context, the glass city is no longer just an anomaly. It becomes a warning, a mirror held up to us across time. If such power once existed, what became of those who wielded it? And worse, what echoes of their destruction still ripple beneath our feet? What if the past is not what we think it is? What if the cradle of civilization was not its beginning, but a resurgence, a second breath after a long silence? The desert remembers, even when we forget. Beneath its stillness lie layers of ruin, each older than the last. Not all speak in stone. Some, like glass, speak in silence. They whisper of hands that built towers before history, of minds that mastered heat before the forge, of wars that scorched memory itself. If the Gobi's glass is a remnant of ancient war, then history, as we know it, is incomplete. Cut to timelines unraveling, images of ancient cities fading into nuclear test footage, overlaid with ancient myths, civilizations rise, fall, and rise again. But they do not always remember their past lives. Could it be that we are not the first? That beneath our mythologies lie not metaphors, but memories? In the end, we must ask, are we headed forward, or are we merely walking in a circle, following the same pattern, toward the same glass conclusion? The Gobi does not answer, it only waits, with ruins that do not erode, with glass that does not decay, with questions that refuse to die. Perhaps it is not truth that lies buried beneath the sands, but ourselves. What do you believe? Is the glass city just a geological mystery, or the scar of a forgotten war, a myth retold, or a memory lost? Share your thoughts below. Let the mystery grow in the light of more eyes. And if these ancient echoes speak to something in you, subscribe. There are more forgotten places to uncover, and more stories time tried to erase. Until next time, keep your eyes open. The past is never truly gone. It only waits to be remembered.